When I stumbled upon a list on YouTube about obscure games, I usually know about most of them, and often different videos can overlap their content. That's not inherently bad, everyone is putting their spin on the same material. My point is that it's hard to find a real hidden gem of a video game that not many have heard of, but I think I managed to discover one. If Slav Jank, cyberpunk, sci-fi, action RPG, immersive sim, maybe Metroidvania and adventure game sounds interesting, you better stick around. Let's take a deep dive into the underworld of Neuro. There is almost nothing about the game and the dev online. The only information I managed to gather is what media art the developer worked on before and after Neuro. When you exclude the aforementioned title, they have one RPG called Mystic released only in Germany, and the rest are just hidden object games. A small correction, I just realized they were also involved in some capacity with a virtual makeover game. Pretty much that's it. The only interesting thing I found in my search is a Reddit post, the game's wiki page, and the back of the post that claims that the game is immersive sim and cyberpunk game. I'd say it has some features resembling those two genres, but it's not quite that. The Mobile Games page describes it best. It's an action RPG set in a dark future where private corporations rule the world. The back of the case depicts every cliché you can imagine, hunter or hunted. The main character is called Hunter, so they try to play with words. Welcome to the future, where every single important character is an idiot, dark, corrupt, buried deep in secrets and lies. Your prospects are low until the corporation give you an offer. You can't refuse. A job too easy, too good to be true. It was. Now you find yourself locked at the center of the greatest secret of all, one that could destroy all life as we know it. You are the only hope. You are Obi-Wan, you are the Neuro Hunter, a thrilling cyberpunk first-person role-playing game. Okay, I've seen it tossed around, so let's address this. What is cyberpunk? According to Wikipedia, it's a subgenre of science fiction set in a dystopian, futuristic setting set to focus on combination of low life and high tech. It features futuristic technology and scientific achievements such as artificial intelligence and cyberware juxtaposed with societal collapse, dystopia or decay. Neuro Hunter has some elements of this, like the augmentations, but it's just scraping the surface of the genre. You can put a chip or leg to enhance your skills, but that's it. There is nothing high tech besides two weapons, one of which you'll get at the very end of the game. The last section you visit you could say is technologically advanced, but it's just background decoration. And for the immersive sim claims, I wouldn't go that far. A problem I have two solutions, like NPC giving you a key or you stealing it, but that's the extent to where things spread. I'd say the game have elements of those genres, and that's not a bad thing.
In the brutal world of the network sphere where the government gangs and hackers struggle, a small group of code assassins operates in darkness. They call themselves Neuro Hunters.
The game opens up with you, Hunter, down on his luck, chased by everyone to pay loans, rent, etc. Fortunately or unfortunately, he gets a mysterious call from someone about a dubious job. Starving for money, he agrees to meet the guy in a desolated corner of the city. This doesn't smell like a setup at all. Even Hunter comments on this.
They scheduled a meeting with me in some deserted corner of the city. Well, I couldn't refuse the offer. I needed the money. But there is something strange about all of this.
A car arrives and he gets in. The person in the back, covered in darkness of course, gives you the job.
The driver, the man on the back seat, the expectation.
Do not turn around. It will be better for both of us if you don't see my face.
First, I asked why they'd chosen me.
We have our reasons for choosing you. You will see for yourself soon enough. The task is complicated, urgent, and absolutely confidential, and the reward will be fitting of the task.
Let's see what I can do. This man didn't give me a lot of information, but he promised a lot of money.
The voice acting is not that bad. Later in the game, the voice actor for Hunter has some question about deliveries, but this could be attributed to lack of proper direction to deliver the lines. It's not bad at all. He leaves Hunter at some sort of factory to do the job. Despite everything looking and sounding suspicious, the money is too good to pass, so he starts doing something on a computer. He gets a call while he's working and is asked about his progress.
This time I'll try it another way. Damn, wrong time for a call.
Report on the situation.
I've achieved some results, but it's too early to report.
Too bad.
Should I proceed? Hello? Hello?
Who would have seen this coming? You wake up somewhere underground. A man nearby dragged you to safety. His name is Toads 2 and he is the exposition dump. After the explosion, Hunter fell into a mine and he can't leave this place. There is no way out, so he is stuck here forever. Toads 2 asks if the corporation sent him. Who is this corporation? No idea. In the intro scene, there is no mention of it. It's Johnson Biotech Corporation, but in-game it's just called the Corporation. The TLDR is a former prisoner known only as Hacker, managed to free himself from being experimented on by the biologists and sees power in the whole underground colony. There is something called New Era of Humanity happening down here and Hacker is involved. Now everyone is working for him. Miners mine coal for him, prisoners hunt beasts for him, and the biologists are doing something. Experiments of some kind probably. Those are the three factions you have to navigate through. Down here, labs were established a long time ago to do experiments with the prisoners. The place is full of mutated creatures resulted from the experiments. First you need to fix your broken consent and then figure out how to get back to the surface. But as you probably guessed it, at a later point you also have to take down Hacker. The story itself is alright at best. It's going where you think it's going, there are no surprises. It's a messy story thanks to the nonsensical characters. They take dumb decision after dumb decision. A cliché story can be fun if it's written well enough, but here it's just cobbled together in weak situations to tidy up the levels. What is surprising is how stupid everyone is, especially Hunter. I want to get too deep in this right now, I'll save it for the spoiler session, but I'll give you an early example. Right after you finish talking to Toads 2, you start exploring and eventually end up in the miners colony. Or you can do anything, you are sent to talk to Engineer Barstow, the guy who runs the miners. He has never seen you, you just popped up one day, and after a bit of talking, he agrees to leave you in the colony without a good reason. The more interesting part is the gameplay. It's packed with mechanics which initially might seem overwhelming, but I would describe them as, excuse the cliché, wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle. This actually works in its favor because everything is quite easy to grasp. Not all are equally fun to play though. The first thing you'll probably notice is that you can pack your invisible backpack to the brim. I'm joking about the backpack, of course. You don't have one, you just put it somewhere. Use your imagination. There are so many things to collect, and trust me when I tell you, all are usable in one form or another. Mushrooms, bolts, cables, water bottles, meat from creatures, rusty pipes, pills, batteries, pots for cooking, and so much more. Your inventory has unlimited space, but you are limited by the weight you can carry. If you go overboard, you just walk slowly. The maps are not that huge, so more often than not, I carried more than my limit back to the traders. From them you can buy the same stuff you can find. Cash is made only from selling what you think you might not need. Some stuff I sold, like the chemical kit, made me some good money, but if you decide to buy it back, you'll pay quite the hefty price. The price you sell is lower than the buying one. For others, the jump is not that much, so it won't be an issue. That's why I initially sold many items and later bought them back. You technically don't need to keep all items, you understand in a minute why. You must sell something to make a bit of money. To be honest, I was selling more than I was buying. The merchants don't restock, so you won't just pile up the gear you need. What they have initially and what you sell them, that's it. This presents an interesting dilemma. You have limited supplies of everything. You can't abuse your healing items or create infinite ammo. You need to ration everything. However, you don't have to worry too much about it. I was just one close to draining my resources, but this was after a long and dangerous trek to the biggest dungeon, if I can call it that. But if I was selling more than buying and the shops don't restock, it starts to feel a bit redundant having traders. There is a trick, exploit to be precise, you can do it later in the game, that you can make a lot of money, but there is no point because there is nothing to buy. It feels a bit shallow. Besides obsessively grabbing everything, there are many chests to open, and 90% of the time they are full of goodies. Prepare to do this unlocking minigame a lot. Memorize the pattern, punch it, and reap the rewards. Another way to get loot is by searching dead enemies. What took a while to realize is that you can use the empty chests as a storage. This is never mentioned in the game. I just decided at one point to try it because I had way too much loot on me and it was slowing me down. And being slow in combat won't have a good outcome for you. Until then, I was selling stuff, but doing this is not without issues. I have no idea if storing the loot is by design. I'm guessing it is, but if that's true, there is a serious lack of polish. First of all, you can't double click or select multiple items to transfer. Only if you move stacked items, there is a slider to decide how many you want to move. I'm fine with that, but it can get a bit annoying. When you transfer an item, you need to drag and drop it on an empty space because the game tends to either put it at the edge where you can barely grab it or even miss it, or just hide it. The thing is, the boxes expand not only downwards but also to the right where you can't see it. If you just drop an item on top of another, there is a high chance the game will store it outside of the view. I did this so many times and it got me annoyed quite a bit because the only way to find the item in this case is to take all your loot back and put it in the chest again. You collect way too many things and this gets tedious. There is no quick sort button either for the boxes and for the inventory. You will spend too much time rearranging stuff. Or just leave it as it is, at least for your inventory. Your choice. And you need to store items for later use because there is a light crafting. The cool part of the collectathon is that the edible stuff can be used immediately to restore a tiny bit of health. However, if you show some patience, you'll be rewarded. To continue with the health example, you can craft a liquor that restores much more. The individual item, a mushroom, gives way less. How about the weapons? Most of them have to be crafted. You might find some at a later point in the game, but you will be putting yourself at a disadvantage. There are other things that can be assembled. Some, like making the shells for a rifle, are a multi-step process. Create one part so you can move to the next step. Nothing is required besides the final weapon. You have to pick and choose what and how you want to play and manage all resources. This is not a survival game, so you don't have tons of crafting. You can't just try and make something. You need a blueprint. Honestly, this was exciting. What is my next weapon? What more can I craft? Where can I find blueprints? And always connected to the exploration of the levels. It created a gameplay loop where I focused on scavenging first, then the main story. I wanted to drain each area and see what new things I would discover. More often than not, you can find blueprints by either NPC giving them to you, stored on a disk or a computer, or stealing them. Let's tackle this in the same order. NPCs can give you side quests. Most of them are nothing special. Bring me this and that, but they're quick. There is one that requires more from you. It's a chain essentially. An NPC lost his weapon and a certain person has it, but he won't give it back to you unless you do something for him. But then the next guy says the same thing. That kind of stuff. I'm simplifying it for the sake of not spoiling it right now, but this is actually one of the most interesting side quests and it's connected to your main goal. The others are just for the experience points and some loot. My initial thought was that this is going to drag, but it was fine, and at the end I got to reap the fruits of my labor. I got tons of loot and I'm pretty sure it was an oversight by the developer. One of the things you can find is floppy disks. Most of them contain valuable information like codes for doors or a blueprint, and you need to read them. All of the information is stored in a database, let's put it that way. Computers offers the same thing plus info for some of the quests. You need to click on every screen and copy all the information. That way it will save you from walking back and forth trying to figure out where is the information you missed. You can read it if you want, but most of it is just fluff. I found very little interesting or relevant to the narrative. You can also delete it from your database, but I don't see why you would. It's not like it's heavy. If you don't like to work for your reward, you can just steal it. Your success is based on a percentage and you need to be behind an NPC. If you don't succeed, the NPC will turn around and tell you not to do that. If you get persistent, a small drone flying around that keeps the peace will start to shoot you with its lasers, and it does a lot of damage and can easily kill you. There is a risk reward for stealing and I love it. You are punished severely, but getting something you don't have to pay or earlier than intended is highly tempting. You probably figure out the first exploit you can do, but for those who haven't, let me explain. It's a simple one. Just save before trying to steal and repeat until you succeed. That is, if you are patient enough. I tried it once just for the sake of it until I got what I wanted and never repeated it. It took way too many times to load my save file because my skill was too low. There are more exploits and honestly they were right in front of my eyes and it never occurred to me until I read about it. I won't share now, but in the spoiler section. You can make a lot of money out of this, but it's a late game thing. There is another way to steal, but it's just information and there are no repercussions. cyber stealing. You can read the mind of someone and just press the left mouse button and the bar will start to fill. By scrolling the wheel, you can see some NPCs have more to offer. The challenge is for your bar to fill before the other one drains. The numbers on the side are how big the file is. The bigger it is, the harder it is to steal. This will signal your limits. There are some impossible to breach NPCs with big size file because you can't upgrade your skill enough even if you maxed it. I think they are just put there for a show. Using cyber stealing is the only way to get, to my knowledge, the blueprint for the shells. Speaking of upgrades, when you kill an enemy you get experience points. Get enough and you receive 1 upgrade point. You can use it to improve your abilities. A tale as old as the world. You can put points in 7 available skills. Some upgrade more than one thing, like Constitution. One level gives you more health and more carrying capacity. With every level, the following asks for more points. By the end of the game I maxed out almost everything. If you hover over a skill, it will show a text that explains what improves. I like it when a game does little things like this. This is a quality of life improvement that I wish would be more present in the other areas of the game. And this leads to the hacking minigames. There are 2 types. The first is essentially minesweeper. Some chests can be unlocked by guessing the code, others play the OG of free games. You play it 3 to 4 times during the game. You have a health bar so you can take a few bombs to the face. They are short and if you die, you get back in very quickly. I really like they didn't use it that often because it's nothing to write home about and it can get boring quite fast. It's just a small gameplay diversity. The other is playing a real-time strategy game. You have up to 4 units. Some have higher firepower but lower health or vice versa. The main unit is the installer. It has 2 functions. The first is just normal attack, but the second is capturing bases and turret towers. The towers turn to your side once converted. If the installer dies, you need to restart the minigame. You can't have more than 1, but for the others you can have multiple. In later stages of the game you can have 9 units in total. Initially I liked it somewhat, but later it starts to show how unpolished it is. The first issue is the controls. You play only with the mouse. To move the camera you need to go to the edges of the screen and push it, but it comes out as sluggish. It's way too slow. To spin the camera you hold the right mouse button and move the mouse. It's hard to describe unless you play it. It just slows down the pace because you need to orientate yourself often. On top of that, once you grab all the units, if you click too fast you deselect them, leading to them dying. Selecting them has the same green ring around them as their color, which leads to confusion, and at some point you see them doing their own thing, mostly sitting and dying in the process. Anyone who played a real-time strategy game will dislike this seriously. And it's unbalanced. Later stages introduce healing pads, which are self-explanatory, and a raider, the last unit. Its purpose is just one, to show invisible mines. The thing is, the raider is the fastest moving unit of them all and it's always in front of the pack. The issue is that the units don't stack in one place. Each needs to take place on the grid and the raider usually steps on a mine. The area of effect is so big that it wipes out at least half of the units. Even if you see the mine and react fast clicking away, you deselect them, causing you to restart. I spent almost 30 minutes in one level because all of these issues, and the healing pad was surrounded by turret towers. It wasn't worth the risk reaching it. The strategy minigame is mandatory because this is how you can disable the laser turrets that guard otherwise inaccessible areas. At a very late stage in the game you can destroy them, but it's not worth wasting ammo on them. Also, there are way too many narrow pathways, and when you account for the aforementioned units needing a square on the grid to stand on, they just scatter around, trying to find a way to where you clicked, leading to their perish and not attacking automatically near an enemy until they stop. The strategy I found that worked for me was moving the installer only to capture a couple of towers. The other units stay relatively close to protect it. The installer has a big health bar, that way you spare the other unit. Then you get to the health path to heal everyone. About that, you need to click on each individual unit and lead it to the top of the path to heal it. On the surface it's a good idea, but it ended up highly unpolished with weird design decisions. Thankfully you have to play it 5 to 6 times during the whole game. For some reason the sound effects are way too low and you can barely hear anything, and there is no option to increase it. There is also quick save and quick load while in the minigame, but it's poorly implemented. If the installer dies and you try to load, it doesn't work. It just kicks you out and you have to start all over again. So you need to be with one hand on the quick save and quick load buttons constantly, which sucks. It did help me a couple of times when I was halfway through a map and noticed that I'm about to restart. It's such a shame. They had the right idea, but it needs a complete overhaul, and the lack of polish brings the experience down. And this is the theme of the game, lack of polish. The main attraction is the combat. It's mostly melee. You eventually get some ranged weapons, but think of them as a luxury. You have enough ammo to play often with them, but not to forget about the melee combat. And I save them for larger enemies because they are easy to hit. At least that's what I did. As I said earlier in the video, you don't have unlimited supplies for creating ammo, so you rely mostly on melee weapons. And the melee combat is fine. The first weapon you'll find is a knife. It has the shortest reach, as you can imagine. This is what combat looks like. Not very exciting, to be honest. Some weapons have a heavier attack done with the right mouse button. It does more damage, but is either slightly slower or uses more ammo. Some have slightly less range than the normal one. Most of the heavy attacks takes a bit of time to charge, but in my opinion, it's worth it for some extra damage. Did you notice there is no reticle? This threw me off so hard in the beginning. You fight these creatures and it's hard to judge if your hit will land or not. I was struggling for a bit to figure out why my swings weren't getting registered. I eventually got used to it. I wouldn't say I fully mastered it, but I was close. I think at the peak of the animation is when the hit is registered. Probably my most used weapon was the Phat made from a rusty metal pipe. This will be your first weapon that will assemble unless you have money to buy it. There are others that require some sort of ammo source to work. I wasn't particularly a fan on some of them, especially the circular saw. It felt like I was missing every single hit. Plus, the battery required to run it can be quite heavy when stacked. That was the reason why at some point I decided to sell it along with its ammo. It wasn't a fun weapon to use. Another one I use quite often is this thing, the drift. I think it works with compressed air, but the animation is just you thrusting it into the enemies. It has decent damage output and a better range than the pipe, but the downsides are the slow reload speed and the slow heavy attack. As for the ranged weapons, the situations ain't better. The first ranged weapon you get is a crossbow. It's a good start, a bit on the slower side when shooting, but as long as it keeps enemies far away from me, I'm fine with that. Later on you assemble two better crossbows, better because they do more damage. This is kind of funny, the crossbow does the damage, not the arrows. It's the ranged weapon that has the most ammo available, so you likely use it often compared to the others. After that, you get a rifle. It can shoot with rapid succession, but shells are hard to come by. Even if you get the blueprint, it takes a lot of resources and several steps to even make some extra shells. Are you sure you won't need any of those components for other stuff? The arrows for the crossbow are much easier to find and make, but by the end of the game, I saw the limitation. I almost ran out of components to make them. It's about the choice of when to use a ranged weapon. I often found myself shooting an arrow to get the attention of a monster and then plunging it to death. That way, I'll be saving some ammo. This was helpful especially when you have to face many creatures. The melee combat is not exactly designed for fighting many mutants at once. It's possible, but most of them are spitting acid and it's harder to avoid taking damage. That's why I prefer to draw the attention on 1 to 2 at most. The worst part of the rifle is the sound it makes. This is the worst sounding rifle I've ever heard. It doesn't seem very impactful and sounds cheap. You will eventually get 3 more ranged weapons. Sound wise, they are more or less the same quality. All of them do much more damage. The supposedly most powerful gun is assembled at the very last moment of the game, and it kinda sucks because it doesn't feel like a devastating weapon despite making more damage. This is mostly due to the bad sound design. As a whole, the combat is fine at best. It won't blow your socks off, but it wasn't outright bad or unplayable. You can tell when you hit an enemy not only because of the points popping out of them and the health bar slowly disappearing, but it does play a distinct sound when you land a hit, especially with the pipe. Also, there is a nice mixture of weapons, 10 in total, and it gives you options to choose your toys. Every weapon can be useful until the end of the game. What you use, it's entirely in your hands, and I like choices. One thing I need to mention fits in the category why? What's the point? Items of the same kind are always stacked in your inventory or in a chest, but when it comes to the ammo, where one pack is multiple rounds, I found it very bizarre that reloading a weapon manually puts it in a single pack that was not fully empty and was side in your inventory. There were cases that I had many packs with just few left inside, taking space for no good reason, but the UI shows the full amount. So why? What's the point? And let's do another one. You can wear body armor and a helmet. You can make them, find them or buy them. So far so good. When you take damage, their points get deducted and they can get destroyed. You either need to replace them or repair them at the merchants. Now, initially I thought stuff would have durability and must be repaired. Not at all. The repair is only for the armor and the helmet. To do it, you need to unequip them and put them in your inventory. Why? What's the point? It's annoying as hell, and don't think of changing it. You won't have enough to do it throughout the whole game. Last one. You will find some cyberware you can use to enhance your skills. You can put just 2, 1 per leg. What's funny is that you drag them from your inventory, drop them on the avatar, and they awkwardly stick out from the leg. Is this where the cyberpunk comparison comes from? Because this is high tech as you get here. Again, why? What's the point? It's underdeveloped and you don't have much of a choice about what to install. The repairing and cyberware feel like an afterthought, or they run out of time to implement them better. Throughout most of my gameplay, I didn't change my augmentations, the choice was not huge, and from time to time I repaired the equipment. I often just forgot about them, and that speaks volumes about how haphazardly those two mechanics are implemented. I think one of the best features of the game is the level design. It's essentially 3 maps, with each getting bigger than the previous one, and a lot of branching paths and corners to explore. And explore you will. You need all the loot to survive this journey. The rewards are everywhere. However, there will be some sections you can't access immediately because you don't have the necessary skill, story hasn't reached that point, or maybe NPC has to give you a side quest. Often you could go through an area, ransack it and kill everyone before anyone even sends you there. This often depends on your skill. A higher skill leads to early exploration. And the nice thing about all this is that the NPC will acknowledge you did the quest. You just need to talk to him immediately after accepting the quest. I finished probably not a small amount of the quests this way. I like that the game doesn't restrain you from exploring to your heart content for the most part. For story reasons or for balancing, some areas will be restricted initially. I'll give you an example. In the first area, the miners' colony, there are 3 massive storages. The first 2 can be easily opened, but the third one can be only accessed if you have high enough lockpicking skill or you have the code. But the thing is, you can also wait for the quest giver to hand you the means to get in or cyber steal it. The game has options like this, and I think this is where the immersive sim comparison comes from. There is one cool feature that is tied to exploration. Intuition. This is a skill you can upgrade. What it does is shows nearby stuff from NPCs to dead bodies, chests, enemies, turrets, etc. Absolutely everything. It's represented with a circle on the minimap. The more points you put, the wider the circle becomes. I didn't upgrade it to the max until very late game. I realized that most corridors are not that wide to put many points in this. For the most part, I left it around level 4. It's a cool skill that will show if there is something hidden or enemies are waiting behind the door. There are several spots where you might miss a loot if you don't pay attention to the minimap and your intuition. The levels are split into 3 areas with minimal loading. The first is the miners' colony with its networks of tunnels and caves. It's not that big, but it offers some initially inaccessible areas that will pique your interest. The second is the prisoners' colony with its cells, orange jumpsuit, NPCs and dingy looking living spaces. Now here is where things start to spread wide. You have so much to explore. Besides the cells, there is a bit of a labyrinth section leading to a railway tunnel with a maintenance section and much more. The third and last is the biologist colony. Sparky clean with variety of lab, massive insides. This is a sprawling area. This is the map compared to the other 2. You visit 3 distinct areas, which have many ticks to uncover, like a small secret lab, a massive underground cave with its own 2 section of areas, etc. And since we already started touching game genres, I would throw that the game has some elements of Metroidvania. You need a high skill level, someone to give you access, or a code to open a door to a section of area, and even to continue the story. The good thing is that some places have a couple of different ways to reach them and nothing is spelled out for you. You need to figure it out with all the available skills you have. Honestly, it's a joy exploring each map. There are a lot of NPCs roaming around, doing their jobs and having something to say. There is always some stuff to loot or places to fight monsters to get XP. I was never bored. Exploration is highly rewarded, and in a game like this, it's much appreciated. However, the biologist colony and to a lesser extent the miners' colony look the same with very little variety, copy-pasted environments. When you enter a specific previously inaccessible area, that is where you can see something new, but otherwise the same corridors and rooms. It's less noticeable in the miners' colony because you won't head back there that often once you explore everything, and it's a much smaller map. That's why I had to use the map often. It autofills while you explore and you can zoom in and out. It's pretty handy, but as everything in this game, there is something annoying with it. When you zoom in and out, it focuses on your location. This is fine, but what's not fine is that to move the map around, you need to use the 2 sliders. They are slow and awkward to use. It would be so much better to drag the map with the mouse, and it gets annoying because you use it often, especially in the biologist colony. Almost everything looks the same. Biggest issue with the game is the lack of enemy variety. 95% of the time you fight the same creatures over and over again. It loses its appeal fast, and probably half of them spit acid. You need to move constantly or they will do a lot of damage. There are some humanoid enemies, but they are extremely rare sight. What is very strange, and you probably notice it, most of the enemies' animations look like they are at a different frame rate way lower than 60. They look jittery and uncanny. I don't think I've played anything like this. You can even see it in the attack animations with the melee weapon. With the small creatures, it makes them harder to hit. Speaking of fighting creatures, the head-on attack is highly undesirable, so I started doing one of two things: spinning around the creatures, or in other words circle strafing, or rhythmically moving left and right to avoid being hit. Once they locked on to your position, they are committed to finishing their attack animation. This makes them easy to deal with. It depends on the creature. This is what I did most of the time. Another tactic I used when faced with a lot of monsters, my tactic was to use the one I'm beating as a shield. If a projectile from a mutant hits another one, it does very little damage, but most importantly stops it. I still spin around them though. I've seen a video here on YouTube where a guy was fighting the smallest enemies while crouching, but I never tried it. It might be worth looking into this option. The bigger enemies are actually the easiest because they are slow and you can exploit them. Every time they attack, they stop moving, so you just circle around them to push them. Once you've mastered this, the game becomes easy, which may bother some of you. To be honest, it bothered me, but to a lesser extent. You still take damage, but with the abundance of healing items, you are just a couple of clicks away from being back to full health. Speaking of health, the free way to restore it is by sleeping in any bed. It maxes you out. This makes the world much easier to survive. You don't have to worry about sleeping in the prison cells. Nothing will happen to you. I promise. Another thing I've never seen before is setting the timer on the autosave. I set mine on 5 minutes. I think it shouldn't be lower because the game freezes for less than a second, and if it's every minute, you'll hate this. It can be distracting in the middle of a fight, but it's a cool feature nevertheless. I just love this. Even if you die, you won't lose much progress and saves the developer from making checkpoints. There are still some, but most of the time you'll count on manual and autosaves, and most importantly, not being frustrated that you forgot to save the game. All the things I discussed until now are for you to figure out. There is no tutorial in the traditional sense. You are just left on your own devices after the intro. But if you look at the controls, you notice there is a lot of shortcuts for all the menus. There is an additional one that I don't think there is any other way to reach it besides pressing F1. It shows the list of all the activities you do. This is the tutorial. There isn't a lot to read, and to be honest, I don't hate it that much. You don't need explanation for most of the stuff. You just discover them as you go. The only time I looked at it is when I played the first minigame, and even without it, I would probably still figure it out. There isn't much complexity to it. The other time was when I was stuck at one point and I couldn't continue. I realized there was a cyber stealing. I completely forgot about it until I needed it. This led me on a wild chase to steal everything from everyone. Some non-essential to the plot stuff can be accessed only after cyber steal. That's how I realized I could have gotten to places and stuff way earlier. A few things before moving to spoiling everything. The game crashed a couple of times in my 25 hours spent playing it. It wasn't a big deal because I didn't lose much progress thanks to the autosaves. I also had to reload a couple of times because the doors in the biologist colony tend to take me for a ride and I got stuck on the ceiling. The moral of the story? Some doors dislike it when you get in their face. Time for a spoiler warning. If you fancy playing the game, skip to the time on the screen. As usual, I will discuss events, weapons, places, stories, etc. and my experience with the game as it unfolded. Right, let's get this ball rolling and see why I think everyone in this universe is stupid. After setting up the world by Toadstool, Hunter needs to fix his comm set by finding someone named Lester in the miners colony. I start roaming around the tunnels, killing monsters, opening chests and feeding Hunter's OCD. It's not long before I stumble upon Marks, a guard of the miners colony. Hunter lies that he escaped from the prisoners colony and wants to join this one. Of course, Mark is suspicious because he knows every prisoner and he has never seen Hunter before and wants to report him to the main engineer. But our clever main character asks if there is another way to settle this. Mark says if Hunter gets him his helmet left in a chest somewhere around the tunnels full of monsters, he will let him in. And this is what he does. Hunter gives him the helmet and we are in the first hub area, if I can call it that. The first person you see is Catherine. You interact with her constantly. She greets you with cutie, which I found very weird. I knew at this moment she'd play a bigger role. A woman roaming around the underground filled with men is kinda sus. She really feels out of place. Hunter says he doesn't have time to chat and leaves, but I clicked on her to see what else there is. I got the very first side quest. Can you guess what it involves? Collecting 10 bear asses. She needs net-like mushrooms, which she uses to make mushroom liquor. Of course, I do this and she gives me the recipe for the liquor, which restores 25 health. Even in late game, this is a lot. The max health is 200. No one wants to talk to Hunter before the main engineer agrees to let him stay in the colony. Even the guy he is looking for, Lester, doesn't want to help you before you're allowed to stay. So I did the next best thing, loot the hell out of everything and everyone I currently can. Eventually I stumble upon the engineer Barlow's room. He runs this colony. Of course he's suspicious of Hunter, but he said the guard can vouch for him. To try and secure his place, Hunter says he is good at managing network security, etc. To that Barlow responds, for a year now, everyone has worked for Hacker and his demands increase with time. People don't have a day off, to visit the pub for a pint, or even have holidays. Worst boss ever. There will be no use for Hunter's supposed skill set. As soon as someone tries to enter the network, Hacker will send robots to deal with the intruder. When asked what to do, Barlow answers he will accept him into the colony just like this. I'm telling you, everyone is an idiot. Now that I had permission to stay, I started exploring the area, putting points into my skills, talking to NPCs, doing some looting, side quests, shopping and killing some creatures. I was eager to explore the area before going back to the main quest, which for now is to fix the concept. I spent more than an hour before returning to Lester, the technician. He asked for a 500 in payment, but knowing you don't have that much, he fixes it for you with the promise you pay him back when you have the money. Hunter contacts the corporation and they are surprised he is alive. He asks to be extracted but they refuse. When he asks why did they do this to him, person on the other side says Hunter knows too much. Like what? They hire him to do a simple job and try to blow him up. He doesn't know anything, like we don't. Later in the game it's revealed what the corporation is trying to do, but why they even involve you is a mystery. The person says Hunter still might be helpful and that the state security department is looking into this case. He needs to reach the prisoner's colony where he'll get instructions on his next steps. Oh, he blindly trusting the people who very recently tried to kill him. I immediately talked to Lester. Hunter expressed desire to live and not spend his life down here and mentions the mission was simple, enter, restore control, leave. Lester immediately questions him about this but forgets about it after Hunter shrugs it off. Of course he also wants out and shares that in the prisoner's colony there is a lift tunnel they stumbled upon. The rumor is that it leads to the surface. Hunter's revelation was cut short. Lester says there is a complex electronic lock and even the best lockpicker has struggled to open it for 2 weeks. Now you need to reach the prisoner's colony and find the locksmith. The lift that leads there is not working. Lester suggests talking to the miners. They go to the other colony from time to time. After some searching, I found one that tells Hunter to use the lift, but he says it's locked. A couple of minutes ago it was not working, now it's locked. What? Well, as you'll see, you just need to get the code from Barlow, so it's locked. Then what was this all about? I think it's a translation issue. There are many instances I started to catch some weird lines. I continue exploring the map, looting of course, and reach 2 lifts I can't use right now. This is where I start using a neat little feature that will save you some time, making notes on the map. When I eventually travel to the prisoner's colony, I realize the notes were not saved after new area loads. Why? What's the point? I didn't play for hours on end, I have a day job, and those notes could save me some time orientating myself after a break. To be honest, you learn the layout of the maps quickly and doors are marked with green and red, accessible and not accessible respectively. Why would you implement a half-baked feature? I put the notes for those 2 lifts and return to Barlow to ask for the access code. Hunter lies that he has unfinished business there and needs the code. Barlow says it's too risky for the colony. Why would he give it to Hunter? He hasn't done anything yet. A lot of people in the colony suffer from depression and have become drunks who barely do their job. Do you think he can help them somehow? Like giving them booze, fueling the fire that burns inside them, or even making them more depressed by telling everyone that they are going to die here? Hunter needs to solve problems of 3 people and he'll get the key. For a person with the title engineer, he is willing to give access to someone who's been down here for 2 hours for doing a couple of mundane tasks, risking, according to his words, the lives of everyone in the colony. And in the meantime, he doesn't ask the obvious question, how did he escape the prisoner's colony when the only way is through the lift? And why can't he go back using the same path? This is what I meant by everyone being stupid, and that's not the most idiotic thing that will happen in the game, just wait. I remember I helped Catherine, the woman who greeted you, and I tried my luck with Barlow. He says this doesn't matter because she is not a member of the colony and is very mysterious. She wanders around aimlessly, or so it seems, and gives you warning not to get involved with her. So, let's help some people. The NPCs you need to help are obvious. Their models are very different than the others. You do some fetch quests and that's it. They are quite short, so I wouldn't hold it against the game. Does anyone even like fetch quests? One of the people you help, Nina, shares her backstory. She used to work for the corporation and her job was to make reports about all incidents and accidents. Nina noticed that the deceased people in the mines were never sent back to their families. She managed to get inside a secret database created for internal use. As you probably guessed, the bodies were sent to the biologists to do experiments on them. Plus all of them have the same cause of death, whatever that is. It's never mentioned. Nina sent her report to the security council and the corporation threw her down here in jail. But thanks to Hacker's uprising, she is somewhat free, and Hunter trusts these people to get him out. Yeah, right. Barlow gives you the access key to the lift and we're off to the next area, but not before Catherine stops Hunter for a chat. She heard he is going to the prisoner's colony and says he doesn't look like a prisoner, miner or biologist and starts questioning him. She knows every one of the biologists. Judging book by its cover, how can you say to this face it doesn't look like a biologist? Can they have long fingers and rounded ass cheeks too? So judgmental of her. Catherine comes to the conclusion Hunter is coming from outside, but he can't reveal who he's working for at the moment.
Well, I understand. Anyway, be careful in the prisoners' colony. It's quite dangerous there. The prisoners are embittered, savage people. The price of a human life is nothing there.
This gets me excited and scared. Now I'm expecting torture, forced to work with a pickaxe, oppressive atmosphere, etc. Catherine suggests you might get yourself in trouble, even more if Barlow contacts their leader and warns him about your arrival. Hunter believes he's a nice person and won't do that. Catherine responds that no good people are in power in this place and she has bad premonition about him. Is she a psychic now? I think I might be right about the translation. The developer probably wanted to make the player doubtful about everyone with this statement, but it doesn't have a payoff. The rest of the game you have to speak with Barlow a few more times. He doesn't betray you. He's just, I'm going to stand here next to my bed until you beat the game. Even if that was the intention, Hunter is always in a different wavelength and the setup doesn't work. Hunter finds the lift and we are finally at the prisoner's colony, at least outside of it. He contacts the corporation, demands to be saved, but his journey is far from over. They want him to stop Hacker. He controls all the systems in the colonies, security and life support, but they all have the same energy source, the main generator. To deprive Hacker of his power, you must destroy the generator. This will be advantageous for you and the corporation forces will come down and deal with him. However, the whereabouts of the power source is unknown, but the corporation has an agent in the prisoner's colony, a barman named Williams. Hunter should talk to him. The guy says they are sure someone is helping Hacker and you should be careful. With no choice, Hunter must hunt Hacker. Over and out. Let's pause for a minute. Think about what the corporation wants and Hunter doesn't see it. This is literally hitting him in his face and he doesn't realize it. Our protagonist is supposed to be smart and he can't see the obvious signs that the corporation wants to bury the whole situation miles underground. They even said this case got unwanted attention. I'm telling you, everyone is an idiot, but the biggest might be our main character. There is a small area to explore and loot before reaching out the colony itself. There is a small carved path into the walls with a body greeting you at the entrance. Once you go through it, there is a guard on the other side. After some back and forth between the two of them, the guard agrees to let Hunter in, but he must see Bronsky first.
Just let me in, please.
Seriously, Hunter sounds like a child on the verge of throwing a tantrum who eventually promises to behave if he is allowed to do what he wants.
Who's Bronsky?
He's my boss. You're lucky that my friend isn't around today, because you know, I should smash your face in and then drag you to my boss for a talk. But I shouldn't leave my post, and that's why you will go there by yourself.
So he lets a known person in the colony because he's not supposed to leave his post and counts on him to see his boss. Great job. The guard from the miners colony and this one probably went to same school where they are taught how to be bad at their job. I've been told not to wander off, but that's exactly what I did. I started ransacking the cells and eventually ended up in a room with 2 computers and couple of chests. This is where I start storing all my belongings that I might or might not need. And since this is the middle section, second of 3 maps, it felt appropriate. The chests in the biologist colony are mostly in the far corners of the map and it's not worth storing stuff there in my opinion. Before speaking with Bronsky, I play my first minesweeper minigame to open a chest. Hunter stands in front of Bronsky and he is quite the gentleman. He offers to break his fingers while Hunter thinks what he's doing here. Our hero tries to play dumb and says he's a miner, but Bronsky has a surprise for him. He also had a con set and heard him talking to the corporation, and he even instructed no one to touch you before he gets his hands on you. Hunter begs to be spared and he says he can be useful and lists his certificates. The one for control systems catches Bronsky's attention, and if Hunter does this one thing, he might leave him in one piece. All Hunter needs to do is open the sluice gate and get rid of all the monsters. And the lockpicker is dead. The body found in front of the tunnel is him. Bronsky sent him to do the same job, but he got killed. Of course, it's not going to be that simple. Hunter receives the key for the cybersecurity boot. This is the structure outside of the lift that was locked. You can't miss it. but as usual I just started seeing what this section of the map has to offer. And my first stop is the trader Manimi. He offers me a deal. I bring him a toolkit and he gives me a blueprint for his new weapon, pneumatic drift or just drift. The cool thing is that I had it already, so I just had to speak with him and the quest is done. You can stumble upon an item before you get the quest and that's pretty cool. That way you're not required to go around and talk to everyone to get the quest before you start exploring. I like this approach to mission design. Since Manimi is one of the traders and his stock is visible, my intrusive thoughts got the best of me. I saved the game because I wanted to test what will happen when I try to get everything from the shelves. He interrupts you a couple of times to stop doing it and then a small flying robot comes and starts shooting you. Those lasers sting. There is a way to get everything unpunished, but you have to be patient. It comes later in the game. I found a barman named Williams that the corporation was talking about, but he wanted some food and alcohol for the bar. Then I remembered the recipe Catherine gave me. I made a bottle of mushroom liquor and gave it to him. Williams remembered that he drank something like this a long time ago, made by a girl biologist. Yes, it's Catherine. Hunter gets another warning about her. I don't think Hunter is using the right head. He introduces himself and asks for the information about the generator. Supposedly, there is a secret passage leading to it and Hunter can find more information about it in the observation room, but it's guarded by Bronski's people, one person to be precise. Hunter can probably access it through the computer room, but it's locked and only Bronski has the access code. One thing before we move on. Williams is also a trader and he'll become extremely important for finishing the game, unintentionally I might add. After the chat I continued exploring the area and found Doc, another merchant but selling different stuff and also an important plot NPC. On the opposite side of Dock there are showers and a prisoner is hiding there. His name is Chuck and he asks Hunter not to tell anyone, and if you want to help him once you open the sluice gate you should tell him so he can escape. My next step is to do exactly that, open the sluice. And you do this by playing a real-time strategy game as a means of hacking. You find a computer outside of the colony in the locked cybersecurity booth. Choose units and dive in. The first time is very easy. You grab your units, move them in the arena, kill enemies, struggle with the controls and capture the base. Once you win, the laser turrets won't attack you and you can actually take over control of them. I used this only once a bit later, however I don't think you get XP. Now instead of going through the small tunnel, you can pass right through these two sliding doors. This is the sluice Bronski wants open. For some reason they lose collision when they start to open. Hunter goes back to Bronski with the good news and asks for what he needs to continue his quest. You're given a choice. You can ask to access the observation room or the computer room. I chose the observation. I don't think it matters in the grand scheme of things. The only thing that's changing is which door you use. Earlier I tried to pass through a section guarded by one of Bronski's men, but he refused. Once I got permission to pass, the guy still won't let me in, but he offered me a deal. He wants Devil's Soul. I quickly jump to Doc and he's selling it. I get back to the guard and he finally agrees to let me pass. And oh my god, I hit the jackpot. I hacked my way into Bronski's room and inside was full of chests, stuff around the tables and on the floor, even computers to go through. There are other places like this with a lot of loot and you might think this is excessive, but remember, the shops don't restock and what you find is what you have to work with. Improvise, adapt, overcome. Once Hunter ransacked the room, he goes out and down to the observation room. There he finds a report on something called Silver Flame and Silver Flame Mineral. On all computers you can find reports about experiments on people that flesh out the world, but they are not vital to understanding what is happening. I would go as far as to say they don't expand the lore that much. Everything is told to you as the story progresses, so if you skip the notes, you won't miss much. At the end, there is a locked door, which is the other way you can access this place, so that's the difference in your choice. I went to an explored area in the prison colony and reached a locked door leading to the railway. I need a code to open it, but this will happen later in the game. We still have other things to do. First I visited the dock to ask about the generator, but he says he didn't know anything. But after suggesting Hunter help him with his work, he agrees. So he does know, cheeky bastard. He asks for a sample of a creature, something unique because he is also a scientist. On my way out, guess who's waiting outside? Catherine. She seems to be everywhere. Hunter tells her about the dog situation and she is willing to help for a favor, of course. You need to go to the miners' colony and buy her a helmet. This is as stupid as it sounds. When asked why she can't do it, Catherine says it's not that easy and it seems there is a reason. There isn't. The quest is pointless. Later you can find her sitting next to the trader and this line is never touched upon again. Remember the guy hiding in the showers? I got back to him, he's almost ready to leave. He needs a knife, milk and a cold breakfast. He can't do it because he is not allowed to leave the place. What? Hunter agrees to help, but in return he'll get answers from him and a reward of some kind. I don't have everything, but I'll keep his request in mind. For now, let's get the helmet for Catherine. I start to notice at this point that when you get quests like this, you must check the quest log for what exactly they want, because there is a difference on what the NPC says and what's written. In this case, you need to buy a miner's helmet, not a regular one. You can waste time if you don't check it, and that's not a good design. Once I buy it and go back to her, she says there is a storage facility nearby and I should look for a mutant parts there. I've already been there. It's a place with a locked door to the railway. When asked how she knows, the answer is intuition. She is hiding something, I'm sure about it. Before heading that way, I gather all the stuff Chuck needed, and he confirms the dead body outside of the tunnel is the lockpicker. Both of them were friends, and after he died, Chuck went to his cell to get something to remember him, but Bronsky's people got there too and knocked his teeth out. Chuck describes in details how cruel Bronsky is. Now I get why I was warned that this colony is very dangerous. The thing is, it's all tell and no show. Words are not enough. After so many, I wanted to see it. I know this is a budget game, but maybe a chained corpse somewhere would illustrate all the words. Anyway, as a reward you get an implant with advanced lockpicking. It adds +1 to lockpicking skill. But one thing left unanswered. Why wasn't Chuck allowed to leave the shower? I'm guessing he's hiding, but it makes no sense to stay there. I'm overthinking it. I started scavenging the area and went outside where the lift that connects the prisoners and miners colonies, and what do I see? Chuck standing there like an idiot waiting for the right time to escape. When I was going back and forward between the two places, he was always there sitting and waiting. I should have guessed he'd be used later in a quest. After that I went down where Catherine said, found a piece of a mutant and gave it to Doc. He's quite happy and excited, he almost forgot about his promised information. He says that the energy generator is behind the med block 26. There is a lift but he doesn't have the key and you should talk to Bronsky about it. This is an area behind him with two lifts. One leads to the generator, the other to the biologist colony. So you know it's not gonna be straightforward. The Doc gives you the key to the med block after Hunter pressures him. There is some supplies but nothing much of interest besides the two lifts. Time to break a generator, or so I thought. I used the lift and started fighting my way through the creatures. There is the same looking building where you hack a computer to stop laser turrets, but unfortunately I don't have access to it right now. Here is where you face the first humanoid enemies. I love their running animation, it's so goofy. They run fast and swing their hands at you. They are even a lesser threat than the other monsters. The easiest way to deal with them is using any range weapon. At this time you have the crossbow, and if you didn't burn through your ammo, you have more than enough. 3 arrows and they are down. There is a door across the lift and I decided to explore there first. But it's dead end. The tunnel collapsed and blocked the clear way to the generator. I told you it's not gonna be easy. Hunter contacts the corporation, whining about the situation. The mission is stuck. I think the translation is not perfect, but who am I to criticize someone's English when you can hear mine? Anyway, what are you smoking about? Why can't you just climb on the easily climbable rocks with the wide open gap that could probably fit a truck? Nah, it will make too much sense. Let's take the longer way and go around, or the game will be too short. The longer way around is to go through the biologist colony. The corporation has a key to the lift, but access to the colony net is limited and they send it to a specific terminal. Why won't you beam it to me, Scotty? It will be too easy, right? And on top of that, they don't even know where it was sent. Those two, the guy who saved you in the beginning, know where it is. Even Hunter is not happy about the backtracking. I cleared the rest of the area, but there is not too much of an interest besides few chests and a walk-in on all 4 XP points. After exiting the section, Doc stops me dead in my tracks and says his experiment is on hold because he needs a spectrum analyzer. If Hunter gets it for him, he returned the favor. One of the prisoners took it. Doc also mentioned Catherine is asking about Hunter, and again he gets a warning not to be involved with her. Hunter senses that the Doc is hiding something and pressures him to start talking. In passing, the Doc says he used to supply the biologist with experimental material. I wonder what could it be. This was before he was arrested. One day he got a specimen, someone unkind, with a note for biologist Catherine. From here everything went downhill. Hunter with his quick thinking realizes this is Hacker. This is one of the stupidest lines you hear in the game.
Oh, come on, she doesn't give the impression of an evil genius.
Really? How many people told you to stay away from her and you still don't believe it? Start using your head, and coincidentally, she's outside. Hunter starts asking questions and at some point she agrees to talk but not here. Someone might hear the conversation. He should meet her near Toad's 2 and she will explain everything. But first I have to find a thief. I start asking around every single prisoner about the stolen spectrum analyzer and I saw this guy. I couldn't find who did it. I doubt just by asking it will happen, so I went to meet Toad's 2. He says it's not just a terminal but a whole abandoned military lab. He gives you the key to access the lift leading to the laboratory. He warns that the place is full of mutated creatures and laser turrets. This means one thing, I'm going to get tons of XP. Toads 2 explains how to reach the lift, but he also mentions that nearby there is another one leading to a cave. I got there way later in the game. It wasn't obvious to me how to enter it. The only person that has the key to the lift is the guard. He doesn't want to talk to me. I think it was beneficial for me that I got there later because the place was full of enemies and you need to drain your resources. My mistake led me to be better prepared. After some light exploration, I met up with Catherine. Hunter wants to know the truth. How much is she involved in Hackers Uprising? She says she works with the biologist experimenting on humans, but she was against it. However, they made her do them. They intimidated her. Sounds like a weak excuse. Then she was sent Hacker, a genius hacker, but the upper management thought he could be useful in other areas. Later her superior died under mysterious circumstances and Hacker escaped and took over everything down here. Hunter responds with, "Things are becoming clear." Really? She could still be lying. I'm telling you, he isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. When he confronts her with people warning him to stay away from her, she just called them cowards and liars who are using Hunter to scare him away from her and for their nefarious purposes. All feel very comfortable with their lifestyle, no one is willing to raise their voice for various reasons. Only Catherine appears to be unhappy here and she sees help to take down Hacker, but no one wants to help because he is everywhere and everyone is afraid of him. Hunter is willing to cooperate with Catherine after everything is clear now. Accusations can go in both directions, but of course Hunter is oblivious. I'm pretty sure this is the first time a woman spoke for so long with him and the police wasn't involved. That's why he doesn't see anything further than his Willy. Hunter says that both of them have the same goal, but he has it in the form of an order and it tells her it's from the corporation. She laughs and tells him he is full of surprises, wishing him good luck, and they split. Right from the start, Toads 2 told Hunter never to mention he works for the corporation or he might get killed, but he's saying it left and right. What is even more surprising is that no one reacts to this. What is the point of the warning then? To be honest, I'm not even surprised Hunter tells Catherine. You don't need to torture him. He'll spill the beans if you put him in a room with a woman. The next stop is the War Lab. Rewatching my recordings for this video, I couldn't understand Toads 2 directions, even though I was quite familiar with the levels, but it won't take you long to find the proper lift. On the map, all locked doors are shown in red, so that's a clear indication of where to go. I took the lift and my eyes glazed over a new enemy. I shoot him and oh my god, he's fast and spinning. By accident, I entered the lift and went up. I came back down and started panicking. This thing is slicing me, Buck is biting me and the turret is shooting me. I got beat up quite badly, so I backtracked to the lift. I restore my health and dive back. On their own, none of them are difficult, but the lack of space to move around is what caught me off guard. I dealt with both of them and I just have to avoid the turret. That's not a problem. The War Lab is a big area with a lot of places to explore and loot. Places like this, where you are not in the colonies, is where the diversity in visual lies. None of them feel copy-pasted like the main sections. Besides the loot, there are some world building found on the computers. The humanoid enemies are failed experiments to create super soldiers by the corporation. Another cliché. Once there is a space to move, you can see they are not a danger at all. Actually, they are the least threatening enemy in the whole game. Once they are close enough, they start their attacking animation and you can easily distance yourself and shoot them. Even so, you won't see them much, unfortunately. Pushing forward, there is a computer that can disable all the turrets, and you want to do that because there are a lot and currently you don't have the weapons to destroy them. Plus, it's not worth wasting ammo. As a bonus, if there is a creature in range of the turret after you hack it, they will start to shoot it. And you know what time it is? Real-time strategy. Time. There isn't anything interesting to say besides your unit count is increased to 5. This is where I realized you can take direct control of the turret. I used it only once here. I don't think it's worth it because you don't gain any XP killing the enemies. After that, I entered a section of the lab where it looked like the majority of the experiments took place. Glass tubes with enemies inside, a lot of computer power, etc. Inside there is a chest, but no door or anything resembling access to the insides. I honestly thought I would be jump scared by the creatures bursting out of their prison, but nothing like this happened. Then I noticed I could get the chest through the wall, and so I got the goodies. I looked around for a bit to see if there was any way to open this place. If there is, I couldn't find it, but at least I got what I wanted. Further into the place, on the floor you will find a new weapon, a rifle. The first firearm. The shells for it are not plentiful. Later on you can make some once you get the blueprint, but you need to treat the gun as a last resort if you are in a tight spot. As I said, the sound is crap, but the fire rate is awesome. The shells are gone in a couple of seconds. Overall, good weapon for pest control, especially dealing with the big bugs. Getting out of this place, I continued to explore the lab and found what looked like a storage area with some shelves and a computer with the access key for the biologist colony. Mission accomplished. But there is still more to explore. There is a section that is clearly where prisoners were being kept, waiting their turn to be experimented on. There are beds, plates, scraps of food, etc. Environmental storytelling. After that follows a gauntlet of enemies. My strategy was to pull one or two at a time so I wouldn't get overwhelmed. I still took quite a beating, but I heroically prevailed. Once you clear the area, you see there are two locked doors, research room and officer's room. we can't get inside, but the main quest will lead back to them. I got what I needed from the war lab and it's time to leave. From there I went directly to the prisoners colony to store and sell the loot. After that I head to the biologist colony, but Doc stops me and asks to take the mutant sample I brought to him to be given for further testing to Ram Hendrickson from the biologist colony. Unfortunately for Doc, he can't analyze it. Hunter agrees. If you remember, Doc needed a spectrum analyzer, and if you talk to him after he stopped you, you finish the quest. The device can be found in the war lab. Hunter takes the lift to the biologist and immediately jumps into hacking some turrets. This one took me a couple of tries because the map is filled with guard towers and it's easy to get your units destroyed. There are few things to note here. You have 7 units available and 2 structures to capture, plus the addition of the healing pad. From here on, the minigames start to get annoying and all the issues I mentioned earlier in the video are exacerbated. Dealing with the turrets open the path forward, but the guard initially doesn't want to let you in. He even wants to sound the alarm and arrest you, but Hunter is persuasive as usual. He says he is a computer specialist, then he has a sample from a strange mutant and he wants to see Ram Hendrickson. In response, the guard says the story seems to be well-rounded enough. He'll contact Hendrickson to deal with you. What exactly in the story is good enough is beyond my comprehension, and Hendrickson arrives extremely quickly. Hunter tells him he is Monster Hunter, but based on his look and equipment, Hendrickson doesn't believe him. Again with the prejudice. I'm not sure what is about the equipment. Hunter uses a rusty pipe, a crossbow and a rifle from ancient times. He is not very high-tech. But all it took was to introduce the mutant sample and Hendrickson immediately lets you in as a freelance hunter. How are these people so easily convinced? He also mentions that he usually expects bodies and trouble from Dog but refuses to elaborate. Anyway, we better get going to find the generator. And oh my god, this place is huge. You enter the hub area, which is massive for no apparent reason. There are a couple of times here when I thought the game would be over soon, but it continued and I wasn't bored for the most part. I was sad to see all the previously unavailable places and in my opinion it's worth it. Although the gameplay and enemies don't change, at least visually it was interesting. Throughout the game, people walk around and or stand doing nothing, giving the impression of a living and breathing space. There is a day and night cycle, but the only thing that affects, to my knowledge, is what the NPCs will do. It's most obvious with the miners. They either work or stay in the colony hub. You can see them physically walking after their shift ends. It's a minor thing, but it makes the world feel lively. What ruins it a bit for me is that I wish more NPCs were walking around, but it's not a big deal. All this is prevalent in the biologist colony, especially in the hub area. It's brimming with life and opportunity to pickpocket them. And I'm almost 100% sure they are really walking to their destination and not just teleporting. I never followed one, that's why I'm not sure, because they move with the speed of a 3-legged turtle. Because the place is massive, there is an NPC in the center of the hub that will explain which door leads to where. And what you initially see is nothing. There are sections which you access later in the game. You have 3 paths to take. The right one leads to the security and military research sector, the main generator lift, secret lab and barracks. The center door leads to recreation center, park, bar and residential area. The left one will take you to the scientific research sector. Geological and physiological labs are there. If you forget where anything is, you can always go back and ask her. At this point I am 9.5 hours in, but there's still a lot to do and see. In terms of the story, you spent most of your time here with the occasional backtracking to the prisoners colony. By this point I did everything there was to do in the miners colony except a couple of things, but they are story related. Guess which of the 3 doors I chose? The left one, the scientific research sector. I went through the doors from left to right, but I didn't expect how massive this area would get. You can tell from me zooming out on the map, there are some sections you can't get immediately. But first I've met Ivan Mohorovich. He's the one Hendrickson gave the mutant sample to. He's going to be important later. I didn't forget to loot Mohorovich's lab. Moving away from there, I stumble upon a guard standing in front of a door. He initially says he keeps people from going in and monsters coming out, but just because he talked to you after being alone for a very long time here, he lets you in without even asking, with you promising to bring him something good. He's a merchant. What I really dislike in this colony, as big as it is that there are only 2 cellars and they are tucked away in some forgotten corner of the map, especially the bartender. After the first time I met him, I never went back to trade with him. He is very inconvenient to reach. This place could have used at least 2 more spread out instead of constantly traveling to see the guard. Anyway, I spent around 40 to 50 minutes in this dungeon. There are so many monsters to kill, so many chests to open. And as much as I complain about the combat, I had a great time. It grew on me with time, and once I got into a rhythm, I started destroying with little trouble all the creatures. You generally don't get such a long combat sequences and such a big area to explore. explore, but it also drained my resources and I had few more areas left to explore. They were small, but I didn't know it at the time, so I had to backtrack to this place just to know I explored everywhere. This dungeon is the place I start disliking how the doors work. You need to stand still until it opens, because if you move back it will close immediately. The reason is because there are often enemies behind the doors and you take unnecessary damage, and this could be lethal if it happens to be a turret. Any other game would just open the door once you're close and you can move back instead of being ambushed. I'm going to put a trigger warning here for flashing lights because of what follows. If you're sensitive for flashing lights, skip to the time on the screen. My next stop is the middle door, the recreation park. This one is a bit boring. Right after you enter, there is a park-like area that serves no purpose, and there for the first time I saw these blue specters or whatever they are. They are literally pointless. Their only purpose is to annoy you. They quote-unquote attack you, but don't do any damage. They just make the screen flash blue. I get the park and benches here. It's a place where people will relax, but the ghosts? Why? What's the point? If this is about world building, guess what? It sucks. The area lacks combat, so you don't need to be on your feet. There are 2 points of interest here, the lift to the generator and the secret lab. The lift is guarded and the person won't let you use it, plus only the chief of security Julio has the key to access it. So Hunter goes further into the complex, walks past the door to the secret lab, which you can't access now, and reaches Julio. He says if Hendrickson agrees to that, you give you the key. Hunter somehow convinces him and he gives you a note that grants you permission, but Julio doesn't care much. He will give you the key only if you clean the greenhouse from monsters. You can find it where the guard merchant is if you continue forward instead of going right. But as usual, it's not that simple. There is a guard who doesn't let you in despite the fact Julio permitted you. He says it's full of monsters and they will tear you to pieces. That's not true. There are few small creatures and that's it. Anyone can go inside and exterminate them. But of course, there is another way. The guard saw his shocker, it's a stun baton, and now Julio wants to investigate the weapon shortage and punish the guilty party. If Hunter gets back his weapon, he will clear the misunderstanding. This guy sold it to Bronsky. I told you, everyone is stupid. All this, starting with Julio's task, begins a big chain of events that will require backtracking. The guard gives you a hint, literally telling you that you can assemble one, and the blueprint is at Julio's computer. I travel back to Prisoner's Colony and Doc stops Hunter for a chat, and surprisingly he calls out Doc on his practices of sending dead bodies to the biologist.
Don't stick your nose in something that is none of your business. It's more dangerous than wandering around desert adits with a simple penknife.
This sounds like a threat. You get to Doc in a couple of minutes. He says Manimi the vendor is looking for you, so I pay him a visit. He has a business proposition for you and it goes like this. Hunter must get rid of Bronsky. Manimi will take over and he'll get the weapon. Bronsky is described as tyrant who sent people dead or alive to the biologist, and Doc probably helps him. Hunter agrees. There are a couple of steps to end this quest. First, Hunter needs to find evidence of Bronsky's schemes. He probably keeps records of everything. Second, Doc must be pressured to confess he helped with the bodies. And third, 3 people have to testify against Bronsky. Hunter says risking his life for a shocker doesn't sit right with him, and you are presented with 2 options. Tell him you got the blueprint, or you help him and he owes you. I choose the latter. There might be a chance to get something more out of him by choosing the first answer, so feel free to try it. The first order of business is to visit Doc. Hunter is direct with Doc, but he pretends to not know anything. Confrontation without an ace up your sleeve is not the solution. And with this sitting on the back burner, let's try to find 3 people who are willing to testify. What you need to do is go around the colony and click on people. In the bar, Hunter speaks with Mauti, who gives you a side quest. Near Bronsky, there is a guy who's quite grumpy, Warty. He secretly records everything he hears and passes it to Hacker. Mauti says something about the big bad, he doesn't want to be heard by him. Hunter has to get the file with the report made by Warty. The report is in Bronsky's room, which I ransacked hours ago, so the quest is nice and easy. I started looking for people to testify against Bronsky, but no one wanted to do it. I spent embarrassing amount of time looking for a way to continue the story, but it seems like a dead end. Then I decided to visit the biologist again. This time I managed to find the second merchant, a bartender. Near him there is a door locked bar storage, and just by the name I figure out the bartender will have the key unless you have at least level 5 lockpicking, which I didn't. Then something hit me and I opened the tutorial text. I completely forgot about cyber stealing and I'm 10 hours in. My first victim is the bartender. I got the key for the storage. I literally facepalmed myself for missing this, and you bet your ass I went to check up every single NPC. That's the only way to open certain chests and even acquire some blueprints. There are some limitations, some are way too big and even if you maxed out your programming skill, it's still impossible. It's time to get back to the prisoner's colony and Bronski. I steal his discreditable notes and confront Doc once more. He admits to sending biological material, and it's not always a monster and it's not always dead. He just follows orders to survive. Hunter tells him he's done helping Bronski. In the bar area you'll find the first two people needed to testify, Mouty and Williams. The third one is Chuck, the guy hiding in the showers. Then I speak with Manimi, telling him that I got everything needed to take down Bronski.
I've got information from Doc, and found others for the meeting. Everything's ready. Now it's your turn. We need to overthrow Bronski and put an end to his dirty affairs.
Excellent. I'm ready.
I can't believe he did this to us.
Give me a knife and I will kill him on my own.
Don't be in such a hurry.
We need a better plan.
Hunter should make him go to his room.
You got what you deserve? Congratulations are in order. He gives you the shocker and the schematic with some improvements, but you need to visit someone who understands electronics in the miners' colony because you might find some problems with the electric repair device. He probably has it. It's Lester. Then Hunter wants to talk about Catherine. Guess what Manimi says to him? Stay away from her. To be fair, no one explains why she's dangerous, but you would think that something might be wrong after so many warnings. Hunter says she's fighting to take down Hacker while everyone else is doing nothing. It's also never shown or told how she fights against him. Manimi says Hunter doesn't understand a thing and has a point, but our protagonist doesn't respond at all. But what Manimi forgot is to take his stuff. Now everything is available for free. He still sells and buys stuff, but why would you leave the whole shop inventory here is beyond me. Honestly, this looks like an oversight by the developer, but I'm not mad. Also, he has the blueprint for the shells. It took me many tries plus 1 or 2 levels more in programming and I barely got it. I don't think there is another way to get it. This happened a bit later in the game. Now that I have the shocker, it's time to return to the guard. He lets you in and it's time to kill some bugs. It's not a big area, so you'll probably be quick here. Just be careful not to fall in this area. You can't get out because Hunter has a pathetic jump. I had to load the save. Excluding getting stuck at the door, this is the only time I couldn't continue due to bugs. There is a door leading to some research cave, but you can't access it now. From here you need to travel to the other side of the map just to tell Julio you've done the job. He trusts you did a good job at the greenhouse and gives you the key to the generator and says this: the generator is their life support. What could go wrong? I didn't want to go directly to the generator. I still had the quest for the cave that was bugging me and I wasn't sure if going to the main quest wouldn't lock me out of completing it, and I wanted to see how dangerous it was there. So I traveled to the hub and stole the key for the lift, and it's everything Toads 2 warned me about. And you know what that means. It's leveling time. I spent a whole hour here cleaning up the caves. One of the reasons is that there are a lot of creatures to deal with. The other is I had to go back to the shop to sell stuff and the rest to be stored. Also, I had to resupply with ammo and healing items, and in the meantime, at one of those visits, I went to see Lester, the guy who fixed my comset. He's the person who has the electronic repairing device needed to assemble the shocker, but he will give it to you after you pay your debts. That 500 cash you owe him. One notable thing in the cave is the music. Throughout the game, you probably won't even notice it. It's one of those soundtracks that is unintrusive and in the background. It's not something you would listen outside of the game, but there are a couple of tracks in the whole game that stood out like a sore thumb, but in a good way. They are techno tracks fitting for the setting, I guess. The first one is in the cave. I'll let you listen for a bit. It slaps. With my newfound ability to cybersteal, I decided to pay a visit to Barstow, and he had the key for the third storage, which I couldn't unlock. But all I found were some rocks. What's this all about? I decided to store them anyway, they might be useful later. I grabbed all the stuff I stored in the miners' colony and went back to the prisoners. In the meantime, I found a blueprint for a new weapon, a 3-barrel rifle. It sounds as ridiculous as it looks. I assembled it a bit later. Now I have just one quest left, stop the generator. But before that, let me share a secret with you. Do you want to make infinite amount of money? You wanna know the money glitch? No, it's not like Chase Bank, but I have to warn you, it involves you in a scam. Viewer discretion advised. It's actually so simple, it's surprising how no one from the developer caught this. Or maybe they didn't want to remove it. All you have to do is sell your rifle, especially the triple or laser one, and then just steal it. And then sell it. And then steal it. And then sell it. And then steal it. I think you get the point. Not sure what you are going to do with so much money, but hey, do as you wish, I'm not judging. I finally entered the lift and the way to the computer is heavily guarded by turrets. I initially thought I could squeeze between the shots, and I did at the cost of taking a lot of damage, but when I opened the map it showed you can disable all of them, so I tried to go back and died. This is my first dead 14 hours in. Remember the block path that Hunter couldn't crawl? There is a building there from which you can disable it. I loaded my save file before trying this daring break-in and went on a search for the key to enter. Well, I shouldn't leave this place because all I had to do was go to the right after exiting the lift. I'm just going to ignore the next half an hour aimlessly. I'll pretend it didn't happen. The cave on the right side that I totally didn't miss consists of fighting through a horde of enemies and a dead body. Next to it there is a floppy disk with the access code. I grabbed it and traveled back to the blocked side of the place in the prisoners' colony. Let's crack those fingers and start hacking. From here until the end, you can use 9 units. This is where the control shined. While going around, I picked up from a computer the newest and last unit of the minigame, the radar. It has one goal, show the invisible mines that you need to shoot. And you might not even notice them initially because you are trying to control the units and suddenly boom, most of them are gone. It took me 15 minutes to beat it, but it's far from the worst. Now that the turrets are disabled, you have unobstructed access to the computer that will shut down the generator. It's another minigame. Great. 24 minutes and 8 seconds. This is partially due to the controls, but also the radar is faster than the others and often just kills itself. And you can't beat the level without at least one alive. At the entrance of one of the bases there is a mine and you can't destroy what you can't see. On top of that, the healing path is surrounded by towers. It's not worth going there. It was a slog. Move a bit, quick save. Move a bit, quick save. This is the most difficult so far and it wasn't fun difficulty spike. Funny enough, later on they are not that hard. The generator is down and Hunter contacts the corporation. He's fed up with this place. The corporation says he will be extracted from the biologist colony and mercenaries are heading down there. They promise to compensate him generously, but now he has to go back and wait for the troops. Very quickly after the conversation, someone else tunes in. It's Haka. It sounds like every megalomaniac cliché you know. Overly confident, laugh at the protagonist, call him imbecile, feeling superior, etc.
Where did you get the frequency and code for my comm set?
Who are you looking to impress with your primitive code? I'm Hacker. Codex is but child's play to me. An imbecile like yourself would never understand such things.
Hacker tells him that thanks to Hunter, no one will get out. He destroyed the only life support this place has. As a bonus, the air supply system is not working. Who would have thought after many warnings, hints and common sense such a thing would happen? No one, especially Hunter. He does lack a foresight and thinking in general, that's for sure. Check this out.
Along with the air supply system, have a pleasant suffocation.
Wait, I didn't know anything about the air supply system. The corporation didn't tell me, and...
That's their style. You were used. which again shows your naivety and short-sightedness.
Duh, you trusted the people who tried to kill you, and here comes the megalomaniac part.
Because only I will tell you the truth, and only I can save this world from lies and violence. Only I can purify humanity from the filth of the corporations.
Anti-globalistic fanaticism with a touch of megalomania. You're insane. I'm ending this connection.
As soon as Hunter steps out of the lift, he gets busted.
Here's our Hunter. Now what? You want to kill us all?
But
You destroyed the air ventilation system. We are all going to die if we don't remedy this situation. How could you undertake such havoc?
I work for the corporation, and I got a direct order to destroy the energy generator. The aim was to deprive Hacker of control over the energy.
Clinical idiocy. I don't know if it is your criminal negligence or a corporation's direct declaration of war, but the situation is hopeless. We're all doomed.
But Hacker told me...
What? You play the same games with Hacker? You two-face? I should have got to the bottom of your ambitions earlier. There's nothing that can be done to improve our situation. But you won't escape the punishment you deserve.
Wait, I can help.
I don't think so. Take him to the cell.
You can't do this!
Hi, buddy. Welcome to our new luxury apartment.
Hunter wakes up in a cell along with Hendrickson and Goran Borkovich, the head of the colony. They both blame him for their situation plus endangering every person, but there is a way out of this. Borkovich remembers there is an emergency system, gives you the key to his office and tells Hunter he can find the plans for it there. Now he only has to convince Julio to let him out. Hendrickson tells Hunter before the imprisonment he examined the limb Hunter gave him. It came from a creature that has never been seen and it can regenerate, parthenogenesis and more. Very strong and dangerous enemy. It could be worked down by the military, they have their own lab or Hacker. There are rumors that biology started to disappear after the first mutant attack and now they are working in Hacker's secret bunker. Their ideas are extremely dangerous and they must be stopped. Borkovich tells Hunter that Catherine is probably involved with Hacker and help him take over this place, but he still doesn't believe it. There is an option here to learn more, but I misclicked it. Julio arrives and Hunter starts trying to convince him to let him out and fix the problem. With no other options, Julio agrees, but he doesn't give back all your stuff. You have to do it only with a knife. I was hoping at this point I wouldn't have to go around and collect everything all over again. Also, I knew all the loot should be somewhere, or at least I was hoping for. The devs can't be that cruel, and I was right. Kind of. The chest outside has everything, but if you don't have high enough level of lockpicking, you'll be stuck with just the knife. If this happened, I would be very upset to say the least. This is such a baffling decision. I don't see the point. Even Julio's argument is weak. If you send someone with just a knife, most likely everyone will die. You're stopping him from succeeding. If he gives back everything, Hunter can't use it to escape. He'll literally die with everyone else. Thankfully for me and my sanity, I locked it a couple of hours earlier, so I was set to go. I reached Borkovich's office and took the key for the railway lift, where you can start the emergency system and head straight to the prisoner's colony. If you are like me and clear the area area earlier, it's an easy trek to your destination. Once you're in, the stairs on the right are inaccessible due to electricity from a cable, so disabling it now is the priority. And there is a new enemy. It's a plant, I guess. Use any ranged weapon, don't get too close, and you'll be fine. Stop the electricity, go back to the stairs, but a dangerous gas is blocking your progress. Fix the issue and you end up in a giant sewer system with a lot of plants and turrets. The track here also kinda slaps. High intensity techno beats, but for some reason there is an invisible trigger that restarts the song for no apparent reason. Still, it's pretty cool track and one of the standouts. I decided to take the left tunnel, and the goal here is to activate the ventilation system by turning on several panels at which you play minesweeper. There is one controller that disables the turrets. Instead of continuing the same direction, I went back and took the right tunnel, channeling my inner Neo. It turns out that at the end there is a panel that will disable the turrets. I think from the last real-time strategy session I realized the installer can take quite a few hits before dying, so what I ended up doing is taking over as many towers as I could to protect my other units and slowly chipping away through the enemies and other towers. Plus a lot of saves coming. Also the invisible mines were not that relevant here, which is good. Now I can freely explore the rest of the sewers, and after clearing up everything here there is still more to explore and do. I went back almost to the beginning and there is a path leading down, but it's also blocked by a loose cable. Dealing with this and activating two more panels, I reached an area where you're supposed to activate the emergency system. Any hacker contacts you. Just listen to this guy and tell me he's not walking, mostly talking cliche. Even Hunter calls him out.
Do you really think that I'm blocked up here in the far corner of this cave, waiting for the corporation to come and seize me? How laughable. I'm at the helm of the most massive vision in the history of humanity. I'm the prophet of the new era. I am not hiding down here forever. Soon I will ascend to the surface, and all of humanity will shudder at the very sight of my legion. I will cleanse the earth from...
Yes, from lies and filth. I've already heard your gibberish.
But Hacker says something about being born again. Ominous. Ooh, scary. He also offers to answer any questions you might have, like the emergency system, because Hunter is not as stupid as he seems to be. I beg to differ. There are 4 in total and let's go through them as quickly as possible. The emergency system is built later than the one Hunter stopped, and it requires special fuel, silver flame. I mentioned it earlier and there is several reports you can read about it found on computers. Only miners extract silver flame. Well, that's not exactly true, but I will explain in a bit. After that, Hunter asks about Born Again, but Hacker doesn't want to spoil the surprise. The way he describes things is pretty obvious. Legion, Born Again, Army, missing scientists, etc. He's making soldiers, and they are supposed to be very dangerous and scary. We'll see about that. Asking about his new era, Hacker starts rambling some nonsense and even Hunter cuts him off. About Catherine, he denies she helped him take over the place because he is a genius and doesn't need help from a woman. A bit further there is a guy, a specialist, who is sent by Hacker to start the emergency system, but he needs the silver flame. So let's head back to the miners colony. Here you need to talk to Barstow, and he is also not happy with you. Because of your actions, the miners have been poisoned and you must help them. Barstow tells you that the biologists are doing experiments with silver flame. Ivan Mohorovich will know how to get it, and the biologist should have a cure for the poison. And this is where I landed. Mohorovich doesn't have enough, but he can help you make more. He gives you some viruses that make the silver flame, but you need coal rocks and a special container. Then Hunter asks about the medicine for the miners, but it can be only found in the secret lab. Stan Wright, the head of the lab, probably has it, but for now we don't have access. From here I went back to Barstow with 2 out of the 3 elements needed. Throughout the game you'll find these weird looking cubes cages. It's not obvious what they are good for initially. This is one of the items needed for the silver flame. If you sell one of them, you have to buy one back, but it costs a fortune. Be sure to keep just one. All that's left is the coal rocks, and Barstow says there is plenty in the 3rd storage area, which I already went through hours ago. He gives you the key. I immediately head back to the prisoners colony where I stored all of them and grabbed one. I make the silver flame and give it to the specialist.
Enough running around.
What's the guarantee that you'll actually help me?
Don't speak nonsense. Do you see a breathing mask on me? And do you really think one would help me if there was no air? If I don't launch the ventilation, I'll die together with you.
Okay, here's the container, but I'll be watching. I don't trust you.
Do what you like, but just don't disturb me.
People are saved. Hacker contacts Hunter to congratulate him on his success. He still wants Hunter to join him and even invites him to his secret lab to witness his power, and this will convince him.
Believe me, you'll see. I'm sure that you'll be delighted. The new era is coming. My born-again army is almost ready. Like a cleansing fire, you'll spread upon the earth and create a new order. My order.
Not again. I'm not used to believing strangers. See you in the laboratories. All clear.
I beg to differ. You trusted the corporation twice and countered many times blindly. What happened next is beyond my explanation. All I had to do was talk to the guy in front of me for the key and get to the secret lab, but I just wandered around for an hour looking for a way to continue. Let's pretend this didn't happen. Blissful ignorance. The specialist gives me the key, and on the way out the corporation contacts Hunter, and this is just an exposition. Because he is no longer a danger to them, the guy explains that they tried to blow up him and kill everyone down here to cover their tracks. The security agency is looking into the corporation, but Hunter is now dedicated, finally, to destroy them. Took you long enough. The next stop is the secret lab in the biologist colony and Stan Wright. Hunter accuses him of working with Hacker, but he says he's working to help humanity and is not always in line with Hacker's plans. Wright agrees to give you the cure for the poisoned miners, but the recent events open his eyes and wants to speak with Goran Borkovic. But since he is in prison, Stan gives you a note to bring to Julio. He also gives you access code for one of the two locked doors in the war lab. It might be useful for finding out more about Hacker's plans. As with everything in this game, it's not going to be straightforward to convince Julio with just a note. He even says things didn't go well the last time a note was involved. He has a problem that Hunter might solve. There is a splinter group of former guards, or as he calls them, turncoats. I guess he sees them as traitors since they left their duty after Hacker took over and they just run away. He wants them dealt with, removed from the face of the underground, and for a proof that Hunter did the job. Julio wants the token of their leader. This is the infamous mission that almost softlocked the game. You can find the entrance to their place at the back of the greenhouse. There is a door leading to a cave and a lift to their residence. I didn't want to go to the cave at that moment because I felt it was the end game, and I was technically right. I wasn't sure if I was able to come back and finish what's left, so I went back to the miners colony and gave the cure. But not before assembling the triple rifle. It's going to come into use at the cave. Barstow has a surprise in store. He gives Hunter, as a token of gratitude, a laser rifle developed in secret. It's a great weapon, but the sound is meh, just a stock laser sound. But it does good damage and in rapid succession. In the very last hour of the game, something weird happened, and I think it was a bug. As you see, I have quite a big ammo count, 1250. This translates to 51 5-volt batteries. With the amount of damage it does, it makes all the other weapons obsolete. But when I load up a save file, I barely had 300, and this could have cost me finishing the game. You'll understand in a bit. As soon as I saw the ammo count, I started using mostly the crossbow and the rusty pipe again. I still needed to visit the two locked doors at the war lab, and that's exactly where I'm heading next. In the first room there is a report about Silver Flame, nothing interesting. But the other one has a file about experiments trying to make a super soldier. And here is the first test of the laser rifle. OP as hell, I love it. I also find in a chest what looks like part of a weapon, so I store it. With all the reports found, I head back to Stan Wright to make sense of all of them, but he didn't mention anything else. However, he gives me a small part of a powerful weapon. Part number 2 collected. Time to get the token Julio wants. Opening the door at the greenhouse reveals a massive cave. Julio mentioned it was a place where the biologists used to make experiments and draw power from somewhere below, so these blue columns are essentially conductors, I think. But there was an explosion and the army closed the caves and installed turrets. After killing some creatures, I tried to cosplay as Neo again with very little success. The only way forward is through the turrets. After that is the final minigame. It took me a couple of tries, but I eventually won. This time it wasn't that difficult. At the end of one of the two paths there is a door leading to the X-cards. The other goes to Hacker's hideout, but we can't access it now. As soon as you exit the lift, the music changes to almost church-like, and for good reason. Hunter speaks with Teacher Paul, the head of this place. When our protagonist tells him that he has orders to kill them, Paul doesn't even flinch.
Our philosophy, brother, is based on humility and the assumption that all events in our life are just messages of the highest blessing.
They seem peaceful, but as soon as Hunter mentions Julio, they are not happy. He is the villain in their eyes.
Stop, brother, lest you make an irremediable mistake. Humility is our lot, but one simple word, the name of this villainous person, offends the ear of the Hearth of Light, and also that of our brothers. I don't know what this lying tongue told you, but believe the word of the priest of four metals. All we have done is defy his inhumane demands in favor of freedom and humility.
Hunter needs the token, but Teacher Paul for help first. There Abby is attacked by monsters, so Hunter goes around the area and kills them. Paul is grateful and says he can get the token if he becomes a follower of the Brotherhood. It requires to do a secret ceremony. This means there are 4 rooms here that you need to go inside and find a quarter of the token. The first 2 rooms, no issues. I went in, killed everything and got the piece. You don't need to get rid of the creatures, but why would you choose to ignore some XP? On the third one, Brother Julius is not keen to believe like Paul. He has doubts about you. To enter you need to answer questions. Doesn't matter if you give a wrong answer, or at least I didn't notice any change. It lets you choose the others. Inside is the same thing as the other 2 rooms, minus some different architecture. And now it's time for number 4. Julius doesn't want to let you in unless you give him spiced meat and 2 pieces of armor. You can't steal the information, and if you haven't leveled up to the max lockpicking, I hope you have his stuff. When I saw this, I got really annoyed. The devs are just stretching the runtime for no good reason. Finding these items leads to nothing new. You've already been everywhere. There is just one more door left to unlock. I spent 2 hours exploring again every corner of the map trying to find enemies that I missed. Only 2 small ones and a side quest I missed. And it's not enough, I would need way more than just 1 point. With the augmentation I made it to level 7, but I was losing hope and I got very pissed. I even started destroying the turrets and hives, but they don't give XP. I had 2 pieces of meat, but even if I had all 5, I was lacking the recipe. It's a dead end, but by sheer persistence and a huge dose of luck, the barman Williams in the prisoners colony had 5 pieces of spiced meat plus the recipe. I completely forgot he was also a seller. This is such a massive oversight and a big headache. With that out of the way, I have to go all the way back to the church and get the last part of the token. The guy wanted 2 pieces of specific armor, but he only accepted the vest, not the helmet. Aren't we picky? The last room goes the same way as the others, but this one is way bigger. In fact, everything in this place is massive and very distinct. It's my favorite area of the game. It's so distinct, and the last room is way bigger and more interesting to go through than the others. For some reason, it reminds me of the Dread movie from 2012. It's always nice to see some new environments even by the end of the game. By this point, you'd probably be fed up with the sterile corridors of the biologist colony or the grimy look of the prisoners. After loading a save file, just before coming to the last room, I noticed my ammo for the laser rifle disappeared. Coming close to the last confrontation and lacking the ammo for the last weapon can potentially softlock the game. You need it because some enemies can be destroyed only with specific weapon that uses the same ammo type. Luckily, I had enough because I didn't overuse the laser rifle. Anyway, I got the 4 pieces and head back to Teacher Paul.
I've got 4 parts of the token.
You've shown your worth to our brotherhood. We are jovial to see that you've been enlightened. Now you must complete your ceremony and assemble these 4 parts of the token. For this, we shall give you our secret knowledge.
The secret knowledge is the blueprint to assemble it. You go back to Julio and he sets free the prisoners. After that you tell Goran that Stan wants to see him and he goes immediately there. The reason why I said earlier in the video that I think all NPC walk to their destination is because of this. I went to talk to Stan, but he was heading out to meet Goran and I started following him. I think he has superpowers. He can phase through walls. I interrupted his head bugging for him to say that Ram had something very important to tell me. And what he says rocks my world to the core. Absolute shock and horror. It's unimaginable. The sample you gave him is from Hacker's army and he wants to take over the world. This turned into an episode of Pinky and the Brain. The creatures he created are very strong and very dangerous. I'm in danger. Stan adds some additional info. Hacker used old military documents to create his army and they are helping him without knowing. And you never ask yourself, what is he doing with all the bodies Bronski sends? I'm telling you, everyone is an idiot. Julio is happy with the situation and doesn't want to get involved, so sending guards is a no-no. Hunter, you are the only hope, Obi-Wan of this world. But none of the three stooges even has a vague idea how to defeat him and his army. Stan adds more information about the cave with the failed experiments and gives you the key to Hacker's den. On the way to the greenhouse and the cave, Catherine intercepts Hunter and I think the developer is trying to raise an interesting question. Once you deal with Hacker, what will happen? This doesn't work as supposed to. This out of nowhere doesn't work here. Until now, the game has never asked those questions and bringing them at the very end, offering no resolution, no interesting dialogue until this moment is pointless. It's a missed opportunity for an interesting discussion. It would be nice to offer at the very end a choice of who you will side with, Hacker, the agency or Catherine. Even if it was a wall of text and not cinematic, it will be much more fulfilling end to the story than what we got. However, to have a point all this, Hunter must be able to see the different points of view and give the player food for thought. Alas, everyone is one-dimensional. Catherine offers some sort of character development, but it's out of nowhere to get me hooked. Anyway, let's continue. The game has 20-ish minutes more until the end. Then Hunter got a surprise call. The security agency. They arrested the director of the corporation and seized all their documents and knew about their plans. Hacker made a deal with the corporation, but someone betrayed the opposite party. The agency will soon have Hacker arrested and Hunter should wait for them, but he has a score to settle. They reluctantly agree to help by sending to Borkovich's office schematics for a powerful plasma weapon. Remember those two strange parts you got? Well, that's your weapon. It was created to be used against Hacker's army. Catherine is not so stoked about how things turn out. I go to Borkovich's room, get the blueprint, set the plasma gun and head to the greenhouse and the cave. I finally have access to Hacker's den. Just before entering the lift, I see a floppy disk on the floor labeled README. It's from Catherine. She admits being an ally to Hacker and helped his uprising, but regrets it deeply. She truly wanted to have control over this place with you. She was ready to negotiate with the corporation, but the agency ruined her chances to seize power along with you. Catherine writes that you will never meet her again, you shouldn't look for her, and she'll miss you. When you consider this statement and the ending cinematic, the game left an open door for a sequel that we never got. It feels like the devs were setting up Catherine to be the next game villain. You understand in a bit. After I'm done reading, I entered the lift and it's the final showdown. I didn't like this part at all. You are up against those flying drones. It's easy to avoid taking damage, but you can only kill them with the newly acquired plasma gun. It's underwhelming to use, but at least it does very good damage. I don't know why it sounds like an explosion. Anyway, there is a computer at the end of the room, but it's not essential to copy the file, just a bit of world building. But it's guarded by two turrets. There are also two on the left side stationary, but you don't need to go there, I think. All you have to do is go to the right side. I tried destroying them, but I always find their hitboxes finicky and I can never damage them reliably. I stopped trying to explore the area and took the right path. This leads to a room where Hacker traps you. This is the army everyone was afraid of? They move very slowly and when they are close to you, they release a giant fart. This is where I started to get worried that my ammo wouldn't be enough. I thought there were too many, but fortunately I had enough. Look at them. All I did was walk around and make them follow me. Easy targets. These are the reborn? Yeah, you need to hit them a specific spot to do damage and it's not the attached fan to their stomach. Sometimes it looks to be there, others slightly off. I was never sure enough, but seriously, Hacker wants to take over the world and cleanse it with these things? They're just pathetic. I'm not sure the fart attack was a good idea. Unfortunately, there is no showdown between Hacker and Hunter. After dealing with all the reborn, the game ends with a cutscene.
You seem like an evil genius to me, but all I see now is a miserable, dying man.
I underestimated you. I should have killed you in the beginning. You deprived me of my power when you killed all of my warriors. That's the end of everything. Of the born again.
The security agency special forces are coming here. They'll establish order in this place. The corporation exists no more.
Don't be so naive. I wasn't the first and I am not the last. Any power is evil, as a matter of fact. You shouldn't forget, there are more evil people than me. Catherine, for instance, can be more evil. Much more evil than me!
I realized while editing the audio I sound more negative than intended, despite the fact I enjoyed my time with the game, more or less. I think more than anything else, this is due to being frustrated what the game could have been. I can overlook most of the issues, like the inventory, minigames, bad weapon sounds, etc. Even the lackluster story. There is more to like than to dislike here. The world is interesting. Exploration is rewarding. Crafting incentivizes looting, all that there is. The maps round up everything. The general lack of polish hurts the game, and as it goes, the cracks start to show up. The strategy game have a lot of issues, and introducing new mechanics exacerbates the proper pathfinding of the units, poor sound design, and just baffling decisions. Maps tends to have copy-pasted environment, getting stuck on objects, a few crashes, and let's be honest, ugly graphics. The only thing I can't excuse is the possibility to softlock the game. Things like that shouldn't pass through playtesting. I can go on what's not so great about the game, but the combinations of mechanics is what kept me going for 25 hours, made me passionate about the game, and the result is this video. I was playing and writing through most of my free time. I almost bought a copy of the game. I lost an auction because I wasn't at home to bid. That's how much I enjoyed the game despite its glaring flaws. I usually have sessions playing the game for an hour, then I stop. I don't pull all-nighters anymore. I have other responsibilities in real life, but in rare occasions some games just grab me and I do play for much longer than usual. The last one was Chorus. Have you ever played a game that for no apparent reason just clicks with you and you're glued to your seat? This was the case with Neuro for me. The first impression wasn't great, but I stuck around and I was rewarded with a pretty decent game. Janky, very rough around the edges, but nevertheless fun. The reason why I mentioned the game resembling an adventure game is because of what you do between the fights. You walk around and solve problems by combining stuff or search around for clues on how to continue. I think I went overboard with the comparisons to the other genres in this video, so I'll stop now. There are better cyberpunk or immersive sim games out there, but this came out at the time where they were essentially lost media. Even if the game had a wider release, seeing this box art on the shelf between all the high profile releases doesn't scream quality. The saddest part is that this was clearly a talented team. This is technically their worldwide debut. Prior to this game, MediaArt had released games in limited regions, Germany or Russia, but Neuro seems to have way more thought and passion put into it on a small budget scale. It was even picked up by Deep Silver for UK distribution. Unfortunately, I think the game is released only in the UK and Germany, which could explain why it's largely unknown. A lot of the issues could be explained by the small team size and probably lack of experience. It looks like one person had many responsibilities and it shows. Just a few improvements could lead to a much more involved game. It's such a shame they went on to make only hidden object games because their talent was wasted. But whatever pays the bills, I guess, I can't fault them for that. On a more positive note, the game runs perfectly in 1080p and the only thing I changed is the FOV, which is probably why you can see inside the hollow arms. If you know any other overlooked hidden gems that has more than meets the eye, or you have personal favorite very flawed game, let me know in the comments section and I might check it out in a future video. The game is widely available in abandonware sites. Check it out.